Hi, everybody. My name is Karen Pontius. I'm the chair of the club lunch Zoom committee. And it's so great to see everybody here. We're recording this event, just so you all know. Thanks for attending the lunch here. I hope you have something to eat or drink with you. The goal of the club is to bring together all Democrats from the most conservative to the most progressive to celebrate our shared values and appreciate who we are and to work together to put more Democrats in office. I'd like to mention our club lunch sponsor, Albrechte and Albrechte Law Firm. They've been supporting this lunch for several years now. If you need legal help, please think about Albrechte and Albrechte. Our program today will feature candidate for Colorado Congressional District 3, Colorado House District 59, La Plata County Board of County Commissioners, and La Plata County Treasurer. And I'll get to introducing them in a minute. Our procedure is that everyone is asked to stay muted, except the speakers, myself, and Gwen Unger, who will be handling the questions. If you want to submit a question during the lunch, please use the chat feature on Zoom. It's down at the bottom. Please do not unmute yourself and speak. Just send your questions to everyone in the chat window, and Gwen will get them and repeat them. If you're having trouble with your internet connectivity, you may want to disable your video. Audio only works better on slower connections. This Zoom meeting is being recorded and will be available within a day or so for viewing on the laplatadem's.org website. You can choose speaker mode, typically in the, oh, my dog. There must be a threat. You can choose the speaker mode, which if you go up to the top right of your screen, the little dots will bring a larger video of the person speaking, or you can keep it in gallery mode and it shows everybody. I'd like to encourage everyone to donate to the La Plata County Dems this election year. Monthly donations are particularly appreciated, and you can set those up on Act Blue. Monthly donations make it easy for you to give to the party with relatively little pain. This is our 9th club lunch for 2022. We continue working hard to bring great programs to you. After our November lunch, we will take a break in December, and we're looking at venues to meet in person again. So we're open to staying on Zoom, but we're looking to be able to have lunch together like we used to. That was always really awesome. Our November lunch has been moved to November 15th because of the election. Our guest then will be Morgan Carroll, who's the chairwoman of the Colorado Democratic Party, and she'll give us a wrap up of the election. If anyone has any other announcements to make, please enter something in the chat and we'll recognize you at the end of the lunch. So now I'm going to introduce the speakers in the order in which they'll give opening statements. They'll each have up to 10 minutes if they need it for this. And after they all give their opening, we'll have Q&A session. So it should be a good amount of time. Adam Frisch is our Democratic candidate for Congressional District 3. He's running against a nationally known candidate. You'd think it'd be a shoo-in to beat Lauren Boebert, but it is a tight race and he needs all our help to get the word out, to support him financially and make sure all our friends and neighbors in CD3 vote for him. We've been hearing from many on the right that they are done with Boebert. Let's just hope they vote for Adam. I mean, I'm okay if they don't vote, but it'd be better if they actually vote for someone who will work for us. Our representative in House District 59, Barbara McLachlan, has been our rep for 6 years, and this will be her last term due to term limits. She'll continue to bring energy, civility, and open-mindedness to the job. If you know Barbara, those are all true things. She listens to all sides of an issue and works closely with fellow representatives to find common ground and fight for the district. She looks forward to a thriving future for Southwest Colorado, and her district includes Aichele, Montezuma, La Plata, and San Juan counties. Then La Plata County Commissioner Clyde Church is running for re-election. Landslide Clyde won a tight race last time, hence the nickname. He has 2 opponents this time, so we need everyone in Clyde's corner to help him win. He's been very busy with all the issues facing our county, from land use codes, a new highway section, seeking a managed camp for our unhoused population, wildfire mitigation, and the creation of a revolving loan fund for investment in purchase of workforce housings, as was done with the West Side Mobile Home Park on Highway 160 West. Our current Plata County Treasurer, Allison Aichele, is running for re-election. She's brought her experience in tech to this position, including many upgrades to our systems and procedures. She manages over 100 million in public money, manages a bond portfolio of 45 million. The county treasurer's office is one of the most efficient of all Colorado County treasurer offices when benchmarked against number of transactions processed per employee. So let's begin our opening statements with Adam Frisch.
Hey, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. We are super excited over here. There's a press conference going on right now due to some polling data we just got back. We are actually in a statistically dead heat with Lauren Boebert. We were down 7 points in July. We're now down 2. We can send, I think all the county chairs have received the full press release that went out this morning about 8 o'clock in the morning, and I can forward on the data that people can see it. It was done by Chris Keating, who's used by Polis and pretty much every Democrat in the state. I made it very clear in my naivete. I don't understand what a Democratic pollster is and a Republican pollster is. I just want the darn numbers, which are true. So we've been very concerned that we get our real numbers here, and their real numbers. We've been blasting them out across the state to Junction, as well as setting up media conversations in DC as well. As I think people have heard me say when I launched this whole thing in February, that we can make this a national race of all these extremists on the right. She's the only one that has any chance of losing. I wish that wasn't the case. God bless Marcus Flowers, who's running against Marjorie Taylor Greene in Georgia, but she won 75% of the vote. The rest of them had 65 and above in 2020. And, our gal down the road received 51% of the vote, even if you adjusted it for this new district. She's at 54. She did not win her home county. We're about to launch a Republicans for Frisch website. We are doing all sorts of things to build this bipartisan pro-normal coalition. Between what happened in the debate a couple weeks ago, we've been spending a tremendous amount of money on ads. We did a mailer that I'm not sure if people received. Durango's part of it, of course, but we're about to go off on a big town hall tour to 7 or 8 different cities. We're about to send postcards to 50,000 Republicans. We're obviously fired up the Democratic base. We're just really, really excited, as you can tell. I'm a little bit all over the place, but we were hoping in July, the polling had us down 7, which people were really happy about there. And 45% of the people wanted her reelected and 48 wanted someone else. And so we've just been making that connection. We're that someone else. I'm that someone else, I guess I need to own. And so it's been resonating. I've been traveling. I was speaking at the Grand Junction Chamber of Commerce. I've been in Pueblo every week. I am actually back in Aspen now, but this is day 4 or 5 of the last 55. I've really just been going everywhere. It has been a while. So we stopped in Durango for about 18 minutes, unfortunately, about 2 weeks ago. Some of you were there launching off on that canvassing on a Saturday morning, but excited to be there. I think someone put it in there. We're going to be there on the 9th, which is a Sunday. We're going to, I think at 10:30, I'm meeting some people for a little bit of a canvas launch. And then we're doing a lunch town hall at 11:30 at the 11th Street Station. We'll be doing the march for, I think there's a freedom march for choice that I'll be participating in. And then we'll be heading off to Ignacio. And so, yeah, I mean, we were hoping that when we did this poll in July, we thought that if we told our story and people knew more about her, we could get to -4, which would also be within the margin of error. And we're actually gone from -7 to -2. And so, which is statistically dead heat. I'm not surprised, but I'm super happy that actually what I thought about in October and November and what we've been sharing and all the payoff no doubt the canvassing is working on your side. Sol's been super helpful down in Pueblo. I see her weekly. I was over at her house with about 12 of her supporters, our supporters, about 2 weeks ago. Donald's doing a great job in the San Luis Valley as well. And we're just over the moon about where we are. I was in Delta a couple of days ago and at the search and rescue, as well as with Dia and the people there for just kind of a democratic gathering. And so, sorry, we keep on getting texts. I've been spoke with Polis yesterday, sent a note to Bennett and Hickenlooper. The D trip in DC has kind of been watching our race. They know that we have one of the most important people to defeat. They've just been skeptical that there's a race to be done. We will be reporting some pretty strong numbers as well, and on the fundraising that ends in September. Happy to talk about me, happy to talk about policies, but would love to open it the floor just to kind of get a reaction to kind of where we are. But this is the path that I've been focused on for a long time, that our team's been focused on a long time, and all the boots on the ground people have just been super, super helpful. Last thing I'll say, my son Felix, some of you might know him. He's our 16-year-old Katie and I are very pro-education, but Felix has taken a year off of high school, a gap year, to work on this. And he has, in charge of all of our volunteer coordinators, he has 125 college interns, volunteers, that are on the phone every day from 4 to 6 p.m. making phone calls. They dial about 10,000 phone numbers a day, every day. And obviously we don't get through to all of them. But when it comes to the canvassing, we're pretty good on the phones. If people would like to help out, please let us know. The coordinated campaign's been good. We're obviously going to need help as the door knocking and some of the other information. So I'll take a breath there and just open it back up and see if anyone has any questions, Karen.
I think we're going to run with everybody's opening statement, and then we'll have the questions.
Perfect.
Unless you have to go. I mean,
No. I'm with you guys to 1:30 and a little bit later
right.
if needed and stuff. Sorry, I'm going to put it on moon. I get all these people want to talk to us from across the country, and it's just been great news. But excited
right.
on our other candidates as well, of course. Big fan.
All right, Barbara McLachlan.
Hello, everyone. I have no press conference going on at this point in time. Nothing going on, so sorry, I'm not quite as exciting as Adam Frisch is. Yeah, we've been really busy. We have hired 3 canvassers, so we have 2 going in Montezuma all the time, and 1 who's kind of going around and helping people out wherever he can. And then we are canvassing a lot. We've had people coming down from Denver to help me out, and a lot of people in Denver making phone calls, because as you know, it's further to go from Denver to Durango than from Durango to Denver. So I am expected to go up there, but they think it's just too far to come down here. So, but they're helping, they're making calls for me. I think our campaign's going pretty well. I'm working a lot to not only go to all 4 counties regularly and visit with people. I'm also going outside of the bubble that is everybody who would already vote for me. I'm going to listen to people who, you know, they quite honestly say they don't like me at all. But I try to listen to them and hear what they have to say. And a lot of times people are coming up and saying, oh, you're not so bad after all. I go, well, I could have told them that easily, but they didn't want to hear that. So, and I'm also getting a lot of Republicans who are saying, you know, I'm not changing parties, but I am voting for you because enough is enough. We've just had too much vitriol. I've never been in such a negative race as I am this year. And someday I will let you know all the names that I've been called. They're really very delightful. I am trying to listen to what Michelle Obama said, when they go low, I go high. And I'm trying to stay above the fray. I'm encouraging everybody not to get engaged with the other side because they just want to make hay out of something that isn't there. So I'm trying to just be very civilized and kind to people, and I'm trying to listen to people that often don't think that anybody listens to them. I'm getting a couple of awards, which I'm really excited about. I'm going up this week. It's the Colorado Civil Justice League Common Sense in the Courtroom Award for for looking at legal issues from a common sense point of view. And I'm one of only a few Democrats who's getting that this time. So I'm very happy that they looked at my voting record and did that. And then the Economic Development Council of Colorado is giving me a Lifetime Achievement Award for working on rural economic development. And I've my consistent work on that. So this is like a lifetime of this stuff. So I get an award every year in my life now. So I'm kind of excited. I'm just going to shake my hand once a year and say, yay, you did it again. We're getting a few bills out that we're working on. We each get 5 bills. So I've kind of been working on some of those in my free time, of which there is very little anymore. But I'm working hard. I do not want to lose this race because I'm not working hard enough, but I'm trying to listen to everybody, respond to everybody that I can, and get some good work done for Southwest Colorado. So, and I just want to tell you, La Plata County Dems, thank you very much for all the support you've given me. We're doing YouTube ads, we're doing newspaper, radio ads. So you really helped me with that, and I want to thank you. So thanks.
Thank you, Barbara. And Clyde, running for County Commissioner.
Yeah, this is Landslide Clyde coming to you from Durango. I'm having a great time canvassing, talking to people, going to meetings this evening. We have a Rocky Mountain Restoration Initiative collaborative meeting and reception, the fish hatchery. So the experience I'm having is really good because I'm getting excellent response when people start talking about policy and the shift in policy, and that people are tired of it. Like Barbara says, I sense this across La Plata County, but there are those that are still going to put the American flag in the back of their pickup and drive around and try to intimidate people. I'm just, La Plata County commissioners are not a very, we're not very partisan group. It's all pretty much bipartisan. And the other 2 commissioners I work with are great. The campaign has been going extremely well. We've learned how to put QR codes on all of the literature that link directly to Act Blue. And that's been an improvement in income and for donations. Donations continue to roll in. I put QR code on all of my literature. My data sheets that I hand out while canvassing have been translated into Spanish for the Spanish community. And somebody comes to the door and says, no English. I just say, just a second, and hand them a sheet in Spanish. And I get them to smile, and they'll sit and read it. And if I can strike up a conversation for a minute or 2, I can usually get the person to turn from either an independent or Republican, unless they're a hardcore Trumper. And then it's not worth the time. So I'm having a good time. I guess I should let you know also that we've got radio ads booked, print ads in the Telegraph and the Herald. We booked the Herald early enough, some of the banner ads on the first and the second page early enough, so we blocked out other political advertising. So those banner ads aren't available to them any longer. I think that was kind of a coup and a good thing to do. Paulette's been leading a postcard signing and addressing campaign. We've got 4 gals addressing postcards by hand. And that seems to be going well. We're getting a lot of postcards back, and we're surprised at the number and the percentages. So watching that closely and seeing if they're coming from any one postal district. We're continuing to work with CCI, Colorado Counties Incorporated, Colorado Counties Acting Together, and monitoring the National Association of Counties, where we're members also. We're sponsoring a bill, the Plata County sponsoring a bill for closed landfills, the state legislature coming up. And we're putting together the support for that. Closed landfills are a problem to most counties in the state because since the 1930s, 40s, the rules have changed for how to handle a landfill. This is a landfill we inherited. It's not contaminating any water, but it does have some vinyl chloride leaching from it. And we're interested in establishing a state fund for closed landfills and let Colorado Department of Health and Environment allocate and direct that fund to the most needed landfills in the state. And we need to work from the worst to the best. I mean, worst to not so worst. So Barbara, I guess I'm lobbying you here. And but with that, I think we've had a good track record the last 4 years. The land use code has been successfully rewritten. It's much easier to use no matter what my opponents say. It's cross-referenced and indexed and it all links together. To answer a criticism I had on the campaign trail was wanted to let everybody know that we're estimating to add 3 positions in the planning department, which should alleviate the backlog of and slow processing that we've been experiencing, just a massive amount of work. We're in a position financially of the county with very strong fund balances. And we're looking at in the coming year, spending down some of those fund balances, but we do understand there is a structural problem with the funding of the county and versus the service the people want and expect. So you'll see a strange looking income expense statement, and it is spending down that fund balance or beginning to. We're planning on moving $5 million more into roads and bridges this year to help pave several of our needy, dirty roads. So with that, I guess, Karen, you mentioned, and thank you for mentioning the Durango West Trailer Park. We created a $1.7 million revolving loan fund. And that process, is that completed, Karen?
It's West Side. Yeah, it's called West Side.
West Side, I'm sorry.
And it's complete. Yeah, Elevation Community Land Trust helped do the sale, but the county's coming in with that 1.5 million at the beginning really helped. I'm not sure how it's going to wash out or when you'll get your money back. I don't know, but they're very happy.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, with that, I just, we doubled the funding for San Juan Basin Public Health. And we're working closely with them to make sure the future looks bright for our health department. And then continuing to support wildfire mitigation actively, personally, and directly, I'll tell you that. So having fun, it's a great place to live. So thank you very much. Thank you for your support and everybody that's making things happen and moving it to the democratic way.
Thank you, Clyde. And now we'll hear from Allison Aichele. Good to see you.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for putting this Zoom meeting together and for everything that you do. I know the local Democrats work very hard to get our policymakers in office, and I am grateful for that. Very grateful that that's where your focus is. So I just want to tell you a little bit about, it's kind of like a job interview, a little bit about me and the county treasurer's office. The county treasurer's office, and actually it's 2 jobs I hold, county treasurer and public trustee. County treasurer is mostly on the tax side. Public trustee is on the foreclosure side, both with a lot of real estate and heavy duty accounting. Both these jobs are without a doubt the 2 most difficult, complicated, complex jobs I've ever had in my entire life. And I've had some pretty difficult jobs at Microsoft and other multinational companies that, I was a director at and did technology, but these are the most difficult. And that's because government accounting is very, very different from nonprofit accounting, from for-profit accounting. And so I know this very well because not only am I the county treasurer, I've been a bank auditor for banks, Wells Fargo, US banks. I've also am currently the treasurer for a number of nonprofits here, Edgemont and Durango Friends of the Arts, Durango Adult Education. I'm also on the finance committee for 9R. And I do a lot of work with all of our metro districts, fire districts, and the school districts in helping them understand all the accounting in the treasurer's office. And that's because I'm well qualified. I've got an MBA, I've got a BA in accounting, I've got all the certifications you can have, whether it's private or public in treasury management. Treasury management is also very different from general accounting. Now, so that's just the technical stuff that I have. And here's what's really important. And I've been criticized for my customer service. Well, to me, customer service is not just having a person come in to pay their taxes. Customer service is about having the transactional, the stuff that, you know, you really don't need to have any explanation on, and have it done by technology. And what I've done throughout my tenure as treasurer is we implemented credit cards. And I'm going to credit Denise Bohemia with this line because I thought it was clever. Customers can pay whenever, whatever, wherever they want. And that is customer service. You don't have to use the post office. Things get lost in the mail. Today, we got 6 letters back that were mailed to taxpayers, their tax notices last January. You can go online and pay. Now, in 2015, 285 people did that. This year so far, we've had over 11,000 people. Now that number, I wanted to just illustrate how big the number is, 285, 11,000. But think about this. We send out close to 50,000 tax bills. 40,000 of those are paid for by escrow companies. So most of the taxpayers pay online now. The few that do come in usually have major problems. And that's where we have the customer service, that we have the time. And we take the time to go through with whatever complicated questions a person has, whether it's a half an hour, an hour and a half, 2 hours, we take that time. And our doors are always open. We're open 5 days a week, regular schedule, and we love talking with our customers. And that's what is really important to us, of getting them to understand treasury management. Because as I said, it's really very, very different. So during the next 4 years, I want to look at more technology because the next generation will be paying differently than with credit cards. Just as the generation before us paid with cash and check, we do credit cards and online payments. The next generation is going to be different. So I'm looking at that. And that's why I want to continue in this job. We are efficient, we're effective, we have great customer service, and you can count on us to be 100% accurate in how we take it in and how we disperse it. And that's what we do. That's what the county treasurer does, collect all the money, and it's about 150 million, and then process it, protect it, which we do by investing, and I do enjoy the investment side of it. And then we disperse it to our taxing entities. We got about 60 of those here in La Plata County, and I really like it. And so I'm asking for your vote again. It'll be my 3rd term, and I love this job. So ask yourself this: do you want someone in this role who's got 8 years experience and has stubbed her toe a number of times and has made mistakes? Or do you want somebody who has no experience in this job? I want a smooth transition when I finish. And I want that to go on because experience really counts. Thanks.
Excellent. Well, I don't see many questions in the, oh, there are maybe a couple in the chat. Now I forgot to mention that there is somebody online, John Simpson, who will talk after our candidate Q&A. John is going to talk for just a couple minutes about local question 2A. Now I'm glad for this because I haven't even looked it up yet, so I don't know what it is, but I have slides that he's going to share, and that'll be after our Q&A. So Gwen, we'll start the Q&A for the candidates.
Okay, the first question we have is for Adam. It's actually coming from Karen. And again, I would encourage everybody, the whole purpose of this really was to allow you to ask questions of the candidates. So put them into the chat. Adam, Karen said, I'm so glad you're strongly pro-choice. How's that going for you on the trail as you talk with conservatives?
Hey, guys, thanks. Yeah, no, it's easy. Obviously, it's an easy thing for me. I think everyone understands that my father was an OB for GYN for 50 years and worked for Planned Parenthood up in Phoenix the past couple, and had to manage some bomb threats in the 70s and 80s when he first started off being an OB/GYN. He started like 1972, 73. So kind of right at the whole thing of this recent conversation we've been having. It's interesting. I think what happened in Kansas, and I think Kansas is very representative of CD3 demographically. And I think all of us were cheering for Kansas to hopefully win by 2 or 3 points, and they won by 19. And so a couple of things that are really interesting. I'm meeting a lot of people that call themselves pro-choice, but to them, pro-choice in a lot of their languages is like at week 15 or 16, maybe there should be a conversation about a doctor signing off on something or their doctor or something. So, you have 10% of the country that does not want to allow rape, incest, the life of a mother to be any type of exception. And that's where Lauren Boebert is. And so we're not being shy about that. We have 4 ads that we're running on television. And the one that's going to end up getting the most play is this. We have an ad called Rights, and it's 3 or 4 or 5 different women of some college kids all the way up to grandparents' age, having conversations about how important the medical freedom is and the rights are. And so there are very few people asking about it. And these are like I'm like self-described born again Christians that are just like, they don't like it, but they certainly don't want the government involved. And again, so I've been very clear from this, I'm chasing the 40% of the Republican Party that wants their party back. And so almost all of that group is some level of pro-choice, and a good chunk of those that don't even think January 6th was nothing more than a peace march. A good chunk of that is, the whole country. This is the first time I feel, for someone who's been following it for a fairly long time, I think this is like the first wheel we have winds at our back and not in front of us about it in the view. Now, ironically or sadly, it's happening only after we've lost some really important rights. So we need to figure out how to get that back. And it's certainly not coming back at the Supreme Court level anytime soon. So we'll see what can get done in the legislative thing. But again, people are not really, I think people have seen nationally, a lot of these Republicans have been scrubbing their abortion views from their website after Kansas happened and after the Dobbs decision, and they realize the vast majority of them are in a losing position in almost any House district. And certainly in Colorado, we've always had strong Second Amendment and strong pro-choice women's healthcare freedom, and that's been good. So that's the conversation that's working well. I do, the abortions are down 50% over the past 30 years, which I consider to be a great thing, and that both parties, everybody should continue to work on unwanted pregnancies. There's certainly no such thing as an unwanted child. But those unwanted pregnancies are going down, and more support for family planning before, during, and after there's a fetus and a baby. So we are not being shy about making that out there. And so they're more upset about some other issues, I would say, than women's reproductive health.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the next question is from Barbara, and she says, Adam, the Denver Post had a big article about Boebert this week saying the rural people love her because she speaks to them. How are you approaching speaking with a rural voice?
Yeah, so a little background on that. Anytime there is less than a glowing article in the CD3 newspapers, the newspapers get about 200 phone calls, yelling and screaming at the editor and at the journalist. And a couple of days before that article that came out, there was a huge headline in the Denver Post about, I think the headline was like, is Lauren Boebert a Christian nationalist? And she was supposed to, and the answer is yes, she is. We don't spend a lot of time talking about it, but her religious extremism is as prevalent as all these other extremism. And so I think the Denver Post got beat up for writing this article. And for those of you that watched the Club 20 debate, there was a reference to the steak fry that happened on Friday night that she missed. And as you know, Club 20 is mostly ranchers and farmers and people in the energy business. This is not exactly, the Durango Botanical Club. And so this should really be where she is. And she can't even walk in that building. And that Friday night, she was out of district at some type of Christian nationalist church, saying a lot of things that would be pretty scary. You know, she was up here a couple months ago in the Roaring Fork Valley talking about that she's sick and tired of the state running the church, and the church needs to run the state. And so I think as to that article, people had the Denver Post had to basically write the anti-Bobart, she's a Christian nationalist thing, and gave her this puff piece. And so that just kind of a little bit of inside baseball what I'm hearing. But having spent my first 5 years on the Indian reservation, and that my father grew up helping my grandfather, who moved from Europe, to run his little grocery store in the mining community of Virginia, Minnesota, which is where a lot of the taconite and iron ore came from in the mining community. And then my great grandfather on my mom's side opened up a cattle trading business, which has become a trailer store, a tack place, and a grain elevator that my first cousin Josh is now running. It's been 75 or 80 years. And the reason I'm on the road so much, Barbara, is because once I have a chance to get in front of people, they realize I'm not a scary person from a resort community, let alone the worst resort community to be from in this district of Aspen, Colorado. And I would say I'm not even from here. I'm from Minnesota and Montana. But it's just boots on the ground. And, you know, the same skepticism I'm having now, I had it in the primary. There were a lot of Democrats skeptical in Durango, in Dove Creek, in Grand Junction, in Pueblo. How are you, or you as a person from the resort community, going to have a chance to resonate with us? And it's been from hard work, being a good listener, and just being myself. And so that part of the message is getting out there. And
Okay.
there's a reason I've been in Aspen for 4 days of the past 55.
Okay, so Judith has a question for Adam, Barbara, and Clyde. So we'll go one at a time. And in fact, I'll put Allison in there too. We'll start with Adam. What's the hardest question you've gotten so far in any of the forums?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. What's the hardest question? I mean, the thing was in the someone might be able to answer that for me, I guess. I haven't really been, we've been asked about energy, and I've made it very clear that, and I made this comment clear during the primary about that it's important to understand that by all means we have this climate crisis going on, and by all means it's man-made, and by all means we need to figure out how to continue to transition over. But and I've offered some pushback from from some of the Democratic left just about how quickly it can happen. And that's a conversation that's tricky to have. I'm happy to have it because it's the same thing I'm saying now, same thing as I said as a father a year ago, which is just that if oil and gas are going to be produced, that they're much better to be produced in this country than in Iran or Venezuela or Saudi Arabia, for labor laws and for the global climate as well. And we need to figure out how to transition away from some of the old line stuff into the new line stuff. The fact that our steel mill in Pueblo, 150 years old, is 90% solar powered, is a great story to tell. But there is a group of people that really, really want that transition to happen like yesterday, and they're very adamant about it. And I appreciate where the heart is. It's just that it's going to take some time, and so I'm happy to answer that question. But it's not always the one that every single person kind of wants to hear, and there's a bit of a math problem about it. But the opening that we get, and again, Bobart is the gift that keeps on giving. Her policy is drill, baby, drill. And when I talk to the people that are senior at the oil and gas institutions and the men and the women that are actually in the fields, they know that's a stupid conversation. And they know that things are slowly transitioning. And we all should be spending our time making sure that the people are looked after well, that used to be making $61 an hour, are now making $17 an hour as they leave the oil and gas fields and end up being electricians or plumbers in the hospitality industry. And so that's the type of conversation I think we're focused on. And it goes back to a more competent conversation that we have. But you guys, for those that know me, I'm happy to anytime we're talking about issues, it's good. It's a good conversation for me.
Okay, thank you. Barbara, what's the hardest question you've gotten so far in any of the forums?
I think the hardest question I have is not hard necessarily because of the answer, but because it really pains me to talk about. And that is funding schools. And the first time I brought it up, my opponent said, well, Tabor has nothing to do with schools. And look, she's been in office for 6 years, and doesn't she know that by now? And then you have to go and explain Tabor, and they give you 60 seconds to explain Tabor, and everybody just says she doesn't know what she's talking about. So it really is Tabor that prohibits us from funding schools the way they should be. Yes, we are given money every year. And yes, we go through our budget with a fine-tooth comb. And yes, we give education every single penny we can. It's still not enough. And I can't just go and raise it. And just because I've been in for 6 years doesn't mean I have the power to take away something. We have a balanced budget in Colorado. And if you're going to give more money to education, you have to take it from somewhere, and nobody can quite explain where they would take it. Mental health, no. Prisons, no. Higher ed, no. There's all kinds of things. And so the budget goes to a lot of places, and it really does pain me that we don't get to give more to schools, because all of us in the legislature would really like to, but it's a very simple question with a really, really difficult and painful answer.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Clyde, what's the hardest question you've gotten so far in forums?
I think it centers around the homeless and our position as a county, having to move the homeless off the Purple Cliffs. That place is so dangerous. It can't be maintained. We can't get emergency vehicles in there. There have been fires, a shooting out there. So it's not a good place. As of today, it's gone. I mean, the people are mainly gone. There were about between 165 and 200 people up there at its peak camping. A lot of these people are from out of town travelers. But as soon as we announced that it was closing, people started to leave. They had relatives in other states, counties, towns. I don't know where they went. But they're just leaving. There's about 55 as of a week and a half ago, as of this morning. I think there's 3. They are moving it to some other camps, and we're going to, figure out some way to take care of them. We've interviewed everybody that was up there. We contracted with MANA to interview everybody in a humane way and help get a wrap services around them. And the families that were up there, pregnant women, anybody with children, or anybody that needed mental health assistance, have all been put in housing. So in the motel. So county is making sure that there is an option for the unhoused.
Okay, thank you. Allison, what's the hardest question you've gotten so far in the forums?
Well, as I mentioned before, I think it's the definition of what customer service is. So kind of like with Barbara, and how do you define Tabor in 60 seconds? How do you define customer service in 60 seconds? And I think that there's a rudimentary, very low level definition of customer service of you can come in and you leave, happy and jolly, and and you've got a sucker in your hand from the dentist, and everything is terrific, which we don't give candy away. And so my definition of customer service, which is very different from my opponent's definition of customer service, is, again, going back to the technology, the transactional nature of paying your taxes. I mean, most people don't want to think about paying their taxes. So for me, customer service is pay whenever you want, wherever you are, however you want. And that's what you can do now with the technology that I put in place. Then if you've got something really incredibly complicated, and we have a few landowners here, I invite them to come in. And to me, that's customer service of we handle the complex problems. And I don't think people quite understand that customer service, transactional technology, complex, come and talk to us. One of the things, and again, I want to do a shout out to Denise, because she was great at this when she worked in the treasurer's office, is she really put in good process for every the department that we get money from. That would be the fairgrounds or the sheriff's office or the clerk's office or wherever we get money, that $100 million. And Denise really worked hard at working with people to help them understand all the technology, what they needed to do, what we did, because that's for accountability. That's for making sure we get great audits. In the last 7 years, we've gotten great audits of nothing wrong with our process, but the process is really technical. And it's not efficient, but it's effective. And so I would say, going back to how do you define customer service in 60 seconds when you have one definition, but there are multiple definitions of that.
Okay, thank you, Allison. Barbara, this question is for you from Ann. It says, yes, you've passed women's healthcare rights here in Colorado, but what more needs to happen to enshrine these? What could happen if the GOP takes over the Colorado legislature?
Yeah, that's a good question because we are not safe yet. Right now, it's a law. We need to put it into the Constitution, and we will never get that done if we lose our majority in the House and the Senate, basically. So we need to get a Democratic governor. We need to keep our Democratic Senate, and we need to keep our Democratic House. And that's the only way we can get it onto the ballot. I think if it gets onto the ballot, we will probably win that race, but we have to get it onto the ballot. And it won't even get there unless we have a majority.
Okay, thank you. Again, I'd encourage everybody, put your questions in the chat. We've got, I think, one more right now, but we've got some more time. Denise has a question for Clyde, and she says, Brad cornered me at the Cowboy Gathering fundraiser for about an hour. Topic was homeless situation and how the homeless needs to be helped. Any thoughts? Obviously, you talked about that a minute ago, but maybe you could talk about how your position may be a little different than your opponents.
Well, that question really was not brought up in some of our forums, only tangentially. It was the biggest thing that came up in the forums was land use code, and how in Brad's perception and in Jack's perception, it's impeding economic development and growth, and it's too slow, too long. And to that, we're planning on adding 3 more staff next year. We have a draft budget now, we're working on that. If that goes forward, we'll be strengthening the planning department significantly. But I mentioned about the homeless. We're treating this as a very humane closure. And we're not dragging people out kicking and screaming. There's no fireworks, there's no SWAT teams. It's just the sheriff's office going in and tagging tents, and people leaving their tents. They'll be inventoried at the Pepsi building or in a safe place, and they can come back and get them later. Many of the people, like I said, have moved into housing of different types. The pregnant women and children, families have been moved into apartments or motels at this present time. And I'm sure that the community here is very involved. Nina and the other organizations really supporting the homeless people and trying to help them. And that's what the county is trying to do also.
Okay, we've got another question for you, Clyde, and I'm going to be really interested in your answer. This is from Steve. He says, is it an advantage to your campaign to have 2 opponents, i.e. do they split the more Republican leaning vote?
I split the vote last time. 4 years ago, I pulled by precinct looking at the election results and analyzing that. My best estimate was that I pulled about 7,000 to 8,000 independents and Republicans to vote for me. That's the only way I beat Brad last time, only by 23 votes. So yeah, I think it's an advantage. I think each one is going to try to be the squeaky wheel on some issues, and I'm already seeing what they're doing and I'm countering that. So I feel pretty comfortable. I'm putting as much work in or more work in. We're far better organized this time around than we were 4 years ago. Know a lot more and have much better networks throughout the county. So yeah, I think it's an advantage. Let's see what happens.
All right, thanks, Clyde. I've got another question from Steve. This one's for Barbara. What's your most common talking point when you knock on doors and speak with people who are not familiar with your campaign? In other words, what's your top priority that we might talk about with various people who want to know more about your candidacy?
Yeah, thank you. That is, after being canvassing for a long time, I kind of know this one. So water, affordable housing, and education, I would say, are probably the ones that I hear about the most, that cover the widest range of interests. People are not talking about abortion at the doors. In fact, I think the Republicans don't want to talk about it because I think they kind of know that people are against them on this, so they don't ask me. But affordable housing is absolutely the biggest one. People can't afford to live in Durango. They can't afford even to live in Pagosa Springs now. There's very few rentals. If we want to attract younger voters, which we should want to do, we need to start really addressing affordable housing, and not just cheap, one bedroom, one bath stuff, but they might have kids and a dog, and they might have, a significant other, and they might need an office. They might need more than one bedroom and one bath in their house. And we work really hard on this, and it's hard, but the state has given money, and we may have to start looking at how the local area spends the money now. Our issues are different than Silverton's issues, that are different than Denver's issues. And I think we need to address all of those really, really closely. And if we want to keep young people in La Plata County, I think it's a very big issue that we all need to start doing a deep dive with. So.
Okay, thank you. Adam, I'm going to step in here and just ask you about affordable housing. Obviously, this is not just a local problem, and it's not just a Colorado State problem. It's a national problem. So I was just wondering what ideas you have on how we might address some of the affordable housing questions at a federal level.
Yeah, no, thank you. So my federal level comments on affordable housing is through my local level prism. From 2011 to 2019, I was on Aspen City Council. I spent the reason I ran, and I spent the majority of time working on affordable housing. There's a lot of things to make fun of Aspen for, and some of them are rightly deserved, but we did start our program in 1974, and 40% of the people that live in the city of Aspen city limits are actually in some type of subsidized housing. And so I think over the past couple of years, people have realized it's a lot more than just Aspen and Telluride and some of these other resort communities. I know that, Durango and Pagosa Springs that have a resort community aspect to it. I've been dealing with it, but when I'm traveling around and I'm in Alamosa and they're talking to me about short-term rental issues and affordable housing issues, and managing the community character and just enough supply. And the problem is obviously now we have these interest rates at the highest level they've been in a long time. We've seen these biggest increases in 40 years. And so when it comes to rent and mortgage payments, it's happening. And so a lot of my conversations with a lot of these Republican and Democrat county commissioners and city council people, mayors all over the district, because they understand I have a little bit of understanding of that. So, my view is I would love from a federal level to just see more money come into the local communities, whether it's on housing or whether it's on community health departments, that every county has a community health department. And I think whether it's a community health or whether it's housing, try to get some more funds there, but allow the local control to be able to make those decisions. Where it should go and what type, that's really a conversation with the local county commissioners and the city council people and those that are advocates in that business. But, while it's a sad situation, I'm glad a lot more people are aware of the conversation that's going on about housing and try to figure it out. I mean, I think even in Grand Junction, I think that someone's building 300 or 400 multifamily units out there as well. One of the things that the Grand Junctions and the Pueblos have that Aspen doesn't, and Durango a little bit, and some other places, is the land option, obviously. And so when I see people that have land, I get really, really excited because that's a conversation I never had issues to. We had some money, we didn't have the land, and other people are in a different situation. And sometimes Section 8 housing, which is one of the big national methodologies of getting housing, doesn't work in some of our higher end communities and expensive communities. That's just where they are. But as I've said before, if you don't have stable housing, it's really hard to have a stable life. It's hard to have a stable job. It's hard to have stable kids in school. Mental health and physical health is obviously all related to that. And so it's never really been a big conversation at the federal level, but I'm glad it is. Even at the state level, I know Governor Polis and his team are trying to figure out other rules and regulations that they could offer to make it a little bit easier for people to pound nails and put up housing. But exactly what that looks like and where it should go, that's really going to be up to the local offices and the local community to try to figure that out. But it's important, and it's a conversation. You know, there's all these nonpartisan conversations I'm able to have, and that's where I'm focusing my time in Grand Junction, right, in Delta, Colorado, which is about trying to access, you know, better protection of water, veterans health care, housing, school funding. There's a lot of issues on the table that a lot of people care about, regardless of red, blue, purple, pink, or yellow. And housing resonates with a lot of people. Sadly, it's just become that much of a more of an important issue that's going on. I know you guys have had some of your own issues and problems and solutions as well. And I'm hopefully the community is mostly on board with those directions, but would love to see some more federal money come in at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to skip Ann's question for just a minute and read the one from Denise. This is for Allison. I read your comments in the Herald with regard to nonpartisanship of office. Are you planning to disaffiliate as Tiffany did? Those of you may know that Tiffany Lee, who's been our county clerk for a while, was a Republican and then went unaffiliated. And Denise says, also curious about your comment about setting up your deputy for the future. How will you sell her to the Democratic Party?
I am a proud Democrat. So no, I'm not going to disaffiliate. I think it's very honest to affiliate when you're running for public office, to say where your values are. And my values coincide with the values of the Democratic Party, as we've been discussing in this entire forum. I'm also very fiscally conservative, but I would think that every Democrat is as well. I don't think that that is something that the Republicans can claim as their own. Just like I don't like that the Republicans claim the flag as their own. They can't claim fiscal conservacy as their own. It's also a democratic value. And that is also how I can sell my deputy, who has done phenomenally well in learning the role, learning the job, learning what she's doing. She is going to be the best qualified candidate in 4 years. She doesn't feel qualified right now. She worked in Tiffany's office for Aaron, my opponent, for 4 years, and will not work for her again. And now she's on my team. She's learned this job. And in 4 years, she will be the best qualified person, because this job does not get to comment on policy, any type of policy, not tax policy, not homeless policy, nothing. It's all about accounting and making sure you're accurate. So no, I'm not going to disaffiliate. I want everybody to know I'm a proud Democrat and will continue to work with the Democratic Party.
Okay, thanks, Allison. I'm going to go back to Ann's question. I'm not sure whether this is going to be a question that Adam wants to get into. I don't know how closely he's watching the ballot measures that are coming up in the state. And but if you want to talk about it, that's fine. So Ann's asking, what are the ballot measures that you really want passed? And maybe we could just ask you to identify one or two and have a short comment. So Adam, do you want to start that, or is that something you just soon skip?
I'm not sure what ballot measures are up on the state. Sorry, is this regarding the state ballot measures?
Yes.
Yeah. I have not been following them very much at all. Are there anyone specifically people have questions on?
Well, let's let the other candidates answer, and then if you want to comment on that, after they go through, we can do that. So Barbara, you want to jump on that one, ballot measures?
Sure, I'd like to know what Adam's been doing if he's not sitting around reading the blue book. I mean, really? Come on.
That's the thickest election book I think I've ever
It
seen.
is. I'm waiting for
I'm going
the
to share, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm going to share my screen with the ballot initiatives
Okay.
and then you can have something to look at.
Ooh, look at this one.
It's a half page, so only look at the top part, this part.
Okay. I'm looking at F. No, is that one on there? Yeah, at the very bottom there, under the red, changing state statutes. Having the joy of being a teacher for so many years at Durango High, the lunch system was always pretty unfair. The poor kids would have to stand in one line and get their free lunch. They'd get barked at if their parents had forgotten to pay, as if it was the kids' fault. There were some very wealthy kids whose parents just didn't have time to give them a lunch and they didn't have money. So I think when we start taxing the people at the very highest income level, I think it's $300,000 and up income. And by the way, I know I'm a politician, but I do not make that kind of money. I think it's okay that we tax them and give everybody the opportunity to be well fed at lunch. I think it makes better learners. And it also takes away all the stigma of not having money for lunch. And I don't think we should be punishing kids who, through no fault of their own, don't get a hot lunch every day.
Yeah.
Okay, Clyde? Is there a particular one of these initiatives that you'd like to see passed?
We've been focusing more on bills going into we want to propose for the legislature. So I haven't followed this, but there are some things here that really bother me. And I think could be dangerous. I like the gold star exemption for the homestead tax, but above that, haven't been following them that closely.
Okay, Allison? Any particular initiative that you'd like to see passed?
Well, now you're asking me about Allison Aichele as the Democrat, not as the county treasurer candidate, because I can't take a position as a county treasurer candidate on any of this because I'm not allowed to have a policy bend. And I have not read my blue book yet. But the homestead exemption I have looked at, I think that's good for senior citizens, and I'd like to see that continue.
Okay. And Adam, I'll bounce back to you. You may have looked at these. The one that, to me, that is the most important really is the first one, state income tax reduction. We keep talking about the things that we're 49th in teacher salaries, and the CDOT's got a $9 billion backlog of things that need to be done. And here's somebody who's proposing that we reduce the state income tax rate. And that sounds attractive to a lot of people, but ultimately it puts quite a kink into the state budget. So anyway, Adam, you have any comments on any of these?
No, I mean, a couple of things. I thought we just raised the income tax a couple of years ago or something by a little bit to support some things. So I guess there's another group that's trying to figure out how to reduce it. As Barbara talked about, we have a lot of great things that are going great about this state. Our school funding is not one of them. My wife, Katie's the president of our school board. I got my substitute teaching license when COVID started. We obviously need to realize that while money in doesn't exactly mean quality out, we should not be 48th or 49th in anything. But I believe that was more of a table conversation that was going on as opposed to what's going on with these income taxes. And so I don't know exactly how much they're talking about making it go up or down, or I should say down, and I would need to study that more. But on one hand, obviously lower taxes are great, but when it comes to roads, and especially schools, we need to figure out how to make sure that things are properly funded. And so I would need to look at that a little bit more. I don't know what the one is on natural medicine. I think I'm supportive, just as a person, of expanding the ability for sales of alcohol and beverages and third party. I think that has to do with people driving around in Uber and stuff. But I don't think there's anything, my main focus is on issues that are more of a rural versus urban conversation, where the rural people get a little bit underappreciated. And the last big one was the wolves issue, where you had a Denver-centric conversation, kind of biology by ballot, which I never think is a good thing. And I was not supportive of the reintroduction of wolves. And that's something I did well before I started looking at this whole thing. And I think that while I appreciate where the others were coming from, I don't think it's good for the ranching and the ag community. And I don't think, as my friend said, biology by ballot is not a great conversation we had either. So I'm more concerned about if these are going to be affecting the rural parts of the district over the urban parts. But as Barbara knows as well as anyone, education funding is super important, especially in our rural communities. I'm not so worried about Cherry Creek and Boulder and Aspen.
Okay. I might just mention, I hope this is on our website, because some of these are really kind of complicated, and some of these where it says CDP, no position, the state central committee takes a position or decides not to take a position on each of these. And then if the state party takes a position, then the county parties have to, they can't take the opposing position. So we need to get that stuff out, because if you've even looked at that blue book, it's huge. So anyway, we'll let that go for now. I've got a question from Judith for Adam. Have you been able to ask Representative Boebert why she voted against several bills that have benefited CD3?
Barbara and Clyde wanted to say something before we move on to the next topic. There's a
Okay,
hand up. So Barbara?
Barbara?
Thanks. My hand looks camouflage up there, so sorry. I don't have a yellow hand like Clyde does. I would say that I agree with Gwen on the income tax reduction. I think it's a really, really, really bad idea. The people who would vote for that also want us to put more money into schools and more money into highways and more, but we can't say where that money comes from. Money just doesn't appear. When you limit the pot, the slices get much smaller on everything. Also, the last three on that upper part, 96, 121, and 122. I think this is, as Adam was saying, this is a rural bill. I think this will close a lot of liquor stores that we have. And I think that keeping our small town liquor stores open, we don't need to have everything in a grocery store or in a Walmart or something like that. I like to have small town grocery stores, and I think that's really important. So, or liquor stores, I'm sorry. So I think I'm going to be voting no on those last three as well.
Okay, Clyde?
Yeah, after looking at this, at Prop 123, I like the title. I've read the proposal, and there's a few things in it that I don't like, but probably are worth trying and fixing later on. There may be some challenges to it, but I like the idea of the funding stream to affordable housing, but I don't know what the consequences of that would be from a budget committee standpoint.
Okay. Okay, back to Adam. Have you been able to ask Representative Boebert why she voted against several bills that have benefited CD3?
We do it all the time. Of all the things that we're focused on against her, it's not all of her personal shenanigans. It is that she's not focused on this district. She's 0 for 39 and producing her own legislation, not getting it even out of committee, which is step one before a president can sign anything. She has voted, there's two big buckets of votes that she has done that have hurt the district. One are where she's been one of many Republicans that have just turned down gobs and gobs of money that could come back to the state for all sorts of things, but infrastructure and water storage and broadband and rural access to broadband are just great conversations that we're having all the time. There's a whole other bucket of votes where she's voted against veterans and firefighters, and you name it, she votes against them. There was a vote last year about increasing leukemia research, and the vote in the House was 2 to 433. And it was Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene. And so we're not shy. Every time that she tweets a picture of her with firefighters, we put up the bill that she voted against. Anytime there's a picture of her with veterans, we put up the bills that show that she voted against veterans 80% of the time. And we list the votes, we list the name of the bill, and we list the technical number of the bill. And so I think the two big issues that we try to get across to everybody is that she is electorally weak, a lot weaker than everyone realizes, remember, she only got 51% of the vote. She would have had 54% of the vote in this new district in her home county. And there's a reason we're statistically tied with her at the race as of this morning. And that she votes against her district all the time. And that's the main thing that we're trying to hammer out in the messaging to those independents and moderate Republicans who want the circus to stop, which is that she votes against this district. It's not about yelling and screaming and everything else like that, that she's just not focused on the district. So we're not shy about that at all.
Okay, sounds good. I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to leave a little bit of time for John Simpson. So from Denise says, Barbara, I know you want to go high, but Shelley Shaw is a Texan, no? Lived in Colorado 1 year. How can you or the party use that?
At the Club 20 debate, I did get to ask her how many times she's voted in a Colorado election, and she said 1. And then I did get to ask her how many times she's been able to go to Denver to see the legislature in action, so she knows what she's getting into. And she said 0. And I think people know without me telling them now. I think enough is going out. I get a lot of comments like, really? She's been there for what? I said, yeah, just a little over a year. So I think without me saying it, I think people know it, Denise. I think when people read anything about her, I did ask her what values she brought from Texas to Colorado that she wanted to share with us. And she said, oh, the values are my values. They're not Texan values. So that was my segue into asking her what she thought of the Texas abortion laws. And she says, well, I don't live there anymore. I don't know what they are. So I jumped in and said, I know what they are. So I got to tell her, and then she said, oh yeah, I think no abortions ever for any reason. Mother's life, rape, incest, nothing ever. So I kind of combined a few things in there, Texas and every other thing that she's been saying. So yeah, so I wish if you guys want to write more about it in letters, I think it's great when it comes from constituents. So, and there's been a couple letters to the editor about that now, but I think it is a concern that when I was first running for office, the Republican Party made so much fun of me because I was only born in Colorado, but I hadn't lived here for as long as my opponent had. And now they're saying, oh, you've been in Colorado for, a little over a year and you're just fine. So there's a little bit of disconnect there. So they just didn't like me.
You're saying that there's some Republican hypocrisy? You don't have to answer that.
I'm just as surprised as you are.
So I just one more note here. You may be looking at the chat, but Ann says that Prop 121 reduces the income tax rate to 4.4%. In 2020, it was already reduced from 4.63 to 4.55, and it would save about $65 per family on average. So not much of a savings for families, and potentially, a big chopping block for the budget. So I'll give it back to you, Karen, and you can introduce John.
All right, we have in our midst, John just put his face in there. Hey, nice to see you, John. John Simpson is going to talk about question 2A, and I am going to share my screen with his slides. So I'm glad that someone has taken an effort at breaking down some of these things. And before he starts, I want to thank all the participants for all these great Q&A and all our candidates. It's been just incredible to have over an hour with you. So thank you. And share screen. And here is John, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Karen, for having me. I think this maybe is the third time you've given me the opportunity to talk about a city issue. And I just want to talk to you real quick about question 2A, which is the excess lodgers tax that has been collected and the Tabor implications of that situation. So I look back in April 2021 of how this situation started, and the Municipal Blue Book sent out notice that the city of Durango taxes would be increased by no more than $900,000 by increasing the lodgers tax from 2 to 5.25%. So what ended up happening in 2021, we had a great year. The lodger's taxes were more than that 900,000. So Tabor requires the municipality to either refund that money or ask the voters if the city can keep that. Additionally, with that, in 2021, that the ballot initiative said the maximum they can collect in 2022 is $2 million. And that it looks like it's going to be over here. We're in 2022, right? And it's hard to say what is going to happen, but it looks like the city's going to collect more than that $2 million. So same issue, the city either has to refund that or go to election. And so the city has chosen to go to election. And this is strictly city, if you live in the city limits, county residents don't vote on this. So the question that they put together, you'll see on your screen there, it's a long question, question 2A, and I've broken it down into 4 different sections. So first, may the city keep all revenues collected in 2021 in excess of the 900,000. So that's that $600,000 in excess I mentioned earlier. Next, can they keep the revenues that are collected in 2022? That's that $2 million number I mentioned earlier. So we don't know how much that's going to be in excess, but about 400,000. So you combine the 2 years, we're looking at about $1 million of excess. And what the city wants to do in that third part there is reallocate the lodger's tax. It previously went to sustainable tourism. Well, now the city wants to change that to the affordable housing and workforce housing, transportation, parking, transit services, equipment and facilities, and arts and cultural events, programs, and facilities. And then finally, the city is asking if can they continue to collect that at that 3.25% rate? Because what Tabor does is when you go over those percentages that the voters approved, the tax rate is automatically reduced by that overages, unless you're asking for the people to approve that higher tax rate. So that's what the city's got four things essentially going on in this one question. So questions you might come up or you've heard before is why not refund this money to the lodgers? They paid it. Well, the lodgers, they didn't vote on this. They don't really have standing in the city. The city taxes belong to the people. So, they really, and we don't know where they are. So the Colorado Constitution or Tabor has contemplated this and said, refunds don't need to be proportional when payments are impractical to identify or return. Another question is, how is this refund going to happen if this ballot issue doesn't pass? And right now the plan is the city's going to issue about a $250 refund on the utility bill. So every resident in town will see every household, not resident, every household will see a credit of about $215. But Tabor doesn't specify how that will happen. The state is issuing checks previously, and they're going to do income credits next year. So the city right now is choosing a utility credit. Is this similar to the state of Colorado Tabor refund? Yes and no. It is all Tabor related, but different sections. The state Tabor refund is more on the excess revenues collected from all the different sources. But Durango has de-bruised, and so those excess revenue collections, the city automatically gets to keep. But this is a special situation, and the ballot issue overrides the de-bruising the city has done previously. So this is only related to the lodger's tax for the years 2021 and 2022. So similar, but a little bit different. And then what happens if this doesn't pass? Well, the city has to refund the 2021 overage. But the way Tabor's written is the city can have more elections in 2023 to deal with 2022 and the tax rate on how they're going to set that going forward. So we'll see what happens if this doesn't pass. The city still has some options to deal with 2022 and the tax rate going forward. And then finally, does this affect the old 2% lodger's tax that's in the city of Durango? No, that's been approved a long time ago. Tabor doesn't affect that. So looking at the pros and cons, I've tried to ask the city clerk to help me out on what pros and cons have she seen that are going to go out in the municipal blue book. You should be seeing this here shortly. Well, the citizens didn't pay. Some of the pros and the reasons why the city should get this money is the citizens didn't pay for this tax, so they don't deserve it. The affordable and workforce housing programs are important. Transportation, parking, and transit services are important. And arts and cultural events and programs are also important. The reasons that the citizens should get this $1 million is the city already has large fund balances, 79 million of unrestricted and 11 million. And although the purposes of housing and arts are all worthy causes, the city has other resources for those causes. And if the citizens knew how much revenue this would have generated back in 2021, they may not have approved it if they would have known the city had so much money from this tax. The city already receives a portion of this lodger's tax and they haven't spent that yet. The city didn't pay this tax either, so they don't deserve it. Similar to the city, the citizens didn't pay this tax. And if a citizen doesn't agree with this table refund, well, they still have the option of taking their $215 and giving it to a charity or giving it to the city. So by giving the citizens the money, it actually gives them the freedom to put this money to better use. Current citizens also saw increases to their housing and transit costs due to all the extra people in town. So they should be compensated for the additional hassle. And finally, the state of Colorado already issued TABOR refunds and plans to issue more TABOR refunds because they recognize how difficult it's been these last couple of years on the citizens. So why doesn't the city issue these refunds as well? So I think I'll probably be voting against this measure, but thought I'd give you the whole spectrum of pros, cons, and where we came from. So thanks, Karen, for allowing me to speak today.
All right.
Karen, we do have a question. John, can you explain in a little more detail what the lodger's tax is? Who exactly pays it, under what circumstances?
You bet. So every visitor who comes into town who stays at a hotel, what's automatically tacked onto their bill is the 5.25%. So any hotel motel within the city limits, that guest who stays there pays an additional 5.25%.
Okay, thank you. Karen?
All right, it's time to wrap it up. I see Marcia put in a comment just now to set the record straight because it's important. The audit for the treasurer's office had findings in 2016, 2017 were corrected in 2018. It's not exactly accurate. There've been 7 years of a clean audit. So anyway, she's put her number in the chat. So I'm guessing you want a bunch of calls, Marcia. All right, I'm going to wrap this up by saying I put in the chat, volunteer with the La Plata Dems. There's only 4 weeks until election day. So Kirby McLachlan, that's my husband who was walking back and forth earlier. Kirby, his email and text is in the chat, and also call Kathleen Adams if you want yard signs posted. There's yard signs in a lot of places, but we need more. And then I posted the link to John Simpson's slideshow that he just gave. The events I put at the very top of the chat, which I will save the chat here, along with this being recorded. We'll have all that information. Adam Frisch is having a town hall this Sunday, 11:30 he's going to do the canvassing. We're at the Dem headquarters at 10:30. And then come to 11th Street Station at 11:30. And then at 1 o'clock, we're having March for Choice. Well, Indivisible Durango is helping sponsor this march all the way from the 9th Street Bridge on up to Rotary Park. So if you can't do the march, you can show up at Rotary at around 1:20 or so and hear Adam speak and Barbara McLachlan and some other people. So this is March for Choice. Indigenous Peoples Day, Monday, the 10th, is 4 o'clock at Buckley Park. And I don't know what the agenda is or anything, but they are going to have a celebration. And then the big one, you want to set your calendar for all these events, because Wednesday the 12th, Adam is going to debate Lauren Boebert. And these are the League of Women Voters is having it on Zoom. And then the next thing is general Attorney General Phil Weiser's fundraiser is on October 16th. So if you want to go all the way back up to the top of the chat, I put all these in there. And that's all in there. La Plata Dems, I already mentioned, need canvassing. Help in the staffing the office here in Durango, which we moved to the Commons building. So if you have a couple hours, a couple times a week, you can volunteer to staff the office and do postcarding while you're there. We need volunteers for canvassing and bone banks for all of our candidates. Does anyone else have any other announcements?
Can I address something that Marcia Porter Norton said about that clean audit? Because I think it's important to understand what a clean audit means.
All right.
Okay, seeing as I was an auditor, a clean audit only refers to money. It doesn't refer to process. And back in 16, and it was the same in 17, but it was at the, I am allowed to do journal entries in my accounting system. That's what the auditors were against, because I could, I never did. That was somebody, a different job, but they wanted a preventative technology fix so that I could not, but I never did. They audited that. That is far different, and it is hardly, the money has always been audited, and it's a clean audit. And that's what you mean by clean audit. That's audit term for they found nothing wrong with the money. The only process finding was that I could, but didn't do journal entries.
All right. Okay, good. Thank you, Allison and Marcia. One more announcement is Monday, the 10th. Senator Bennett will be in town at Carver's. So he'll be at Carver's Brewing, 11:30 in the morning on Monday. And then at 4 o'clock will be the Indigenous Peoples Day at Buckley. So I hope to see you guys all there. Keep an eye out for emails about the next, after the election wrap up. You'll get the, I'm looking for the date. Oh my goodness. It's November. What is it? It's November 15th. So Morgan Carroll, the chairwoman of the Colorado Dems, will be with us on Zoom November 15th at noon. And she'll give a wrap up after the election, which will definitely be us winning big, because all of this is great. Adam, I'm so glad to hear you're within two points margin of error. We can do this. We can do this. So everybody give a little hands in the air, or you can unmute and yell at Adam and Clyde and Allison and Barbara, because we're going to give you
everybody.
all
And
elected.
best of luck to Clyde and Allison and Barbara, and look forward to seeing everyone soon.
And we made it 1:30.
Yeah.
I'm saving chat. Thank you.